The moment the diner door swung open, Sophia Bennett's blood turned to ice. 7 months pregnant, exhausted from a double shift, she looked up from wiping down the counter and saw the one man she'd been running from for half a year. Adrian Valente, the most dangerous crime boss on the East Coast, the father of her unborn child. His dark eyes locked onto hers, then dropped to her swollen belly, and she watched recognition dawn across his face like a lightning strike. Everything she'd sacrificed to disappear, to protect her baby from his violent world, it all shattered in that single, devastating moment. If you're drawn into stories of danger, secrets, and second chances, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Injecting. The fluorescent lights of Rosie's diner buzzed overhead, casting everything in their familiar sickly yellow glow. Sophia Bennett moved through her closing routine on autopilot, her lower back screaming with every step. 7 months pregnant, and she was still pulling double shifts, still pretending everything was fine, still lying to everyone who asked about the baby's father. "He's not in the picture," she'd say with a practiced smile that never reached her eyes. If only they knew the truth. If only they understood that not in the picture meant she'd fled in the middle of the night 6 months ago, leaving behind everything she'd ever known, leaving behind the penthouse overlooking the city, the designer clothes, the terrifying, intoxicating world of Adrian Valente, the Mafia boss who'd consumed her completely, the man whose child she now carried. Sophia grabbed the coffee pot, refilling the cup of the truck driver in booth 3. Her feet ached. Her ankles were swollen. The baby, her son, the ultrasound had revealed, pressed against her ribs with what felt like tiny fists. She'd named him in her mind already. Not Alessandro, which would have been Adrian's choice. Something simpler, something American. Maybe Michael. Maybe James. Something that wouldn't tie him to his father's legacy of blood and violence. "You all right, hon?" Rosie called from the kitchen window. The diner's owner had been kind to Sophia when she'd shown up 6 months ago with a hastily constructed fake resume and desperation in her eyes. "You look pale." "Just tired." Sophia forced another smile. "I'm fine." The lie tasted familiar on her tongue. She'd been telling it for months now. Outside, rain began to fall, drumming against the diner's windows. The storm had been building all evening, turning the summer night thick and oppressive. Sophia watched the drops streak down the glass, each one catching the red neon of the diner's sign. Rosie's Diner. Open 24 hours. The sign flickered occasionally, the R going dark before buzzing back to life. She'd chosen this place specifically because it was nowhere. A truck stop on a forgotten highway 2 states away from the city where Adrian ruled his empire. Where nobody would think to look for Sophia Bennett, former art gallery manager, former girlfriend of the most dangerous man on the East Coast. Former. That word carried so much weight. The door chimed as the truck driver left, dropping a $5 tip on the table. Sophia pocketed it gratefully. Every dollar mattered now. The basement apartment she rented above the Chinese restaurant down the road cost $400 a month. It was barely more than a room with a bathroom, but it was hers. Safe. Anonymous. Or so she'd thought. She was wiping down the vacated booth when the door opened again. The sound of the chime seemed different this time. Sharper, more ominous. Sophia glanced up reflexively, ready with her tired waitress smile. The smile died on her lips. Adrian Valente stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his dark hair, his expensive suit somehow making the shabby diner look even more desolate by comparison. He was exactly as she remembered, tall, broad-shouldered, devastatingly handsome, in a way that had always felt dangerous. Those dark eyes that could seduce or intimidate with equal efficiency. The strong jaw she'd traced with her fingers countless times. The mouth that had whispered both tender words and ruthless commands. For a moment, neither of them moved. Sophia's hand went instinctively to her belly, as if she could somehow hide it, as if he wouldn't immediately see what she'd been concealing for 6 months. Adrian's gaze followed her movement. She watched his eyes widen fractionally as they landed on her rounded stomach. Watched the shock register across his usually controlled features. Watched the rapid calculation happening behind those dark eyes. 7 months pregnant. She'd left 6 months ago. The math was simple. Devastating. Sophia. Her name on his lips sent a shiver down her spine. His voice was exactly as she remembered, low, controlled, with that hint of an accent he'd never quite lost. What the hell? I can explain. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Useless words, meaningless words. What explanation could possibly suffice? He crossed the diner in 3 long strides. Up close, she could see the anger building in his expression, carefully controlled but unmistakable. Adrian had always been a man who controlled his emotions ruthlessly, channeling them into cold calculation. But now? Now she could see the fury and something else, something that looked almost like pain warring in his eyes. You're pregnant. It wasn't a question. How far along? Adrian, How far along? Each word was clipped, precise. 7 months. She watched him process this. Watched the realization solidify into certainty. It's mine. Again, not a question. A statement of fact. Sophia wanted to lie, wanted to tell him it was someone else's, that she'd moved on, that this had nothing to do with him. But the dates were too obvious, and she'd never been a good liar. Not with Adrian. He'd always been able to read her too easily. Yes. The single word hung between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. You left. His voice was dangerously quiet now. You disappeared in the middle of the night without a word, without a trace. Do you have any idea what He stopped himself, jaw clenching. You've been carrying my child for 7 months, and you didn't tell me. I couldn't. Sophia's own anger flared to life, giving her strength. After what I saw, what you did, I couldn't bring a baby into that world. What I did? Adrian's laugh was harsh. You mean my job? The business that kept you in that penthouse? That paid for your gallery, your art classes, your designer wardrobe. You killed someone. The words came out as barely a whisper, but they echoed through the empty diner like a shout. I saw you. In the warehouse that night. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I came to surprise you, and you saw me protecting my territory. Protecting you. Adrian's hands clenched into fists at his sides. That man would have killed you without hesitation if he'd discovered our relationship. He was sent by the Morellis specifically to target my weaknesses. So you put a bullet in his head? Sophia's voice shook. Right there, no trial, no mercy. Just gone. Welcome to my world, Sophia. The world you claimed to accept when you chose to be with me. I didn't know what it really meant. I thought... She broke off, one hand pressing against her belly as the baby kicked, hard, as if he could sense his parents' tension. I thought I could handle it, but then I saw the reality, and I realized I couldn't bring a child into that. Couldn't raise a son knowing his father... A son? Adrian's expression shifted. The anger was still there, but something else crept in. Something almost vulnerable. It's a boy. Sophia nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She watched Adrian's gaze drop to her belly again, watched his expression soften in a way she'd rarely seen. He'd always been so careful with her, so controlled. But now she could see something raw and unguarded in his eyes. A son, he repeated quietly. Then his jaw hardened again. And you were going to raise him here? In this... He gestured around the diner with barely concealed disgust. Working yourself to exhaustion while pregnant? Living in whatever hovel you can afford on waitress wages? It's honest work. It's safe. Safe? Adrian's voice rose slightly. You think you're safe here? Sophia, I found you. If I could find you, anyone could. How did you find me? The question had been burning in her mind since the moment he'd walked through the door. I never stopped looking. The admission was simple, but the weight behind it was enormous. Every resource I had, every contact, every favor owed. I've been searching for you since the night you left. Did you really think I'd just let you go? I hoped you would. Sophia's voice cracked. I hoped you'd understand why I had to leave. Understand? Adrian stepped closer and Sophia instinctively backed up until she hit the counter. He stopped immediately, seeming to realize he was crowding her. When he spoke again, his voice was more controlled. You took my child and disappeared. You let me think... He stopped, running a hand through his damp hair. Do you know what I thought? When I woke up and you were gone? When days passed with no word? Sophia had imagined it, of course. Had pictured Adrian discovering her absence. But she told herself it was better this way, cleaner, that he'd be angry for a while and then move on. Men like Adrian Valente didn't pine over lost girlfriends, except the look in his eyes now told a different story. "I thought you were dead," he said quietly. "I thought someone had taken you, killed you, used you to get to me. I tore the city apart looking for any sign of you, any evidence of who'd taken you. I went to war, Sophia. People died because I thought you'd been murdered." The confession hit her like a physical blow. "Adrian, and now I find you here, alive, pregnant with my son, working in a diner in the middle of nowhere." He shook his head, something like wonder mixing with the anger. "You actually thought this was better? You thought my child should grow up here instead of with his father?" "His father is a killer." "His father is standing right here." Adrian's voice turned hard again. "And his mother is coming home with me. Tonight." "No." Sophia straightened her spine despite her exhaustion. "You can't just... I'm not one of your soldiers you can order around. I left for a reason. A reason that's no longer valid. You left because you were scared. I understand that. What you saw that night, it was brutal. It was necessary, but brutal. But you should have talked to me. You should have given me a chance to explain instead of running. Would it have changed anything? Would you have suddenly stopped being who you are, what you are?" "No." Adrian's honesty was stark. "But I could have helped you understand. Could have shown you that the violence is a means to an end, not who I am at my core." "That's exactly who you are at your core," Sophia shot back. "That's what I finally realized. The man I fell in love with, the one who took me to art galleries and remembered how I liked my coffee, he was the mask. The killer is the reality." Something flashed across Adrian's face. Hurt, maybe, though it was quickly buried under his usual control. "You're wrong," he said quietly. "But I don't have time to convince you right now. What I do need is for you to be reasonable about this situation. You're 7 months pregnant with my child. You're exhausted. You're clearly not eating enough. You're too thin. When's the last time you saw a doctor?" "I've been to the free clinic." "The free clinic." Adrian's voice dripped with disdain. "My son is being monitored at a free clinic while I have the best obstetrician in the state on retainer. I'm managing fine. You're not managing anything. You're surviving. Barely." He pulled out his phone. "Marco, I need the car brought around. And call Dr. Chen. Tell her I need her at the penthouse tonight. Full prenatal workup." He paused, listening. "I don't care what time it is. Pay her triple." He hung up and looked at Sophia. "Get your things. We're leaving." "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Sophia." Adrian's voice softened slightly. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm not asking you to forgive me or even to trust me. I'm asking you to think about our son. He deserves the best care, the best chance. Can you honestly tell me he has that here?" The question struck at her deepest fear. Because no, she couldn't honestly say that. Every day was a struggle. Every shift left her more exhausted. The free clinic had commented on her stress levels, her weight. She was doing her best, but her best was barely adequate. "If I come with you," she said slowly, "it's temporary. Just until the baby is born. Just to make sure he's healthy. Whatever you need to tell yourself." Adrian gestured toward the door. "The car is waiting." "I need to..." Sophia looked around the diner. "Rosie. I need to tell Rosie." "I'll handle it." Adrian pulled out his wallet, extracting a thick stack of bills. He walked to the kitchen window where Rosie stood watching with wide eyes. "For any inconvenience, and for your discretion." Rosie took the money with shaking hands. "Sophia, are you okay? Do you need me to call someone?" "I'm fine," Sophia said automatically. Then, more honestly, "It's complicated." "Is he the father?" Sophia nodded. Rosie looked between them, clearly trying to decide if she should intervene. Finally, she settled on, "You be careful, hun, and you..." She pointed at Adrian with her spatula. "You better take good care of her and that baby." "That's exactly what I intend to do." Adrian's voice carried absolute certainty. Sophia grabbed her purse from behind the counter, her hands shaking. This wasn't how she'd imagined this conversation going. She'd played out the scenario in her head 100 times. Adrian finding her, demanding answers. In some versions, he'd been angry. In others, indifferent. But she'd never imagined this focused intensity, this iron determination to take control of the situation. The rain had intensified when they stepped outside. A black Mercedes sat idling at the curb, looking absurdly out of place in front of the shabby diner. A man in a dark suit, Marco presumably, stood holding an umbrella. "Boss," Marco acknowledged Adrian with a nod. Then his eyes landed on Sophia's belly, and she saw the shock register. Marco had been one of Adrian's inner circle. He'd known Sophia before, known she'd disappeared. "Not a word," Adrian said quietly. "To anyone, understood?" "Of course, boss." Adrian took the umbrella and held it over Sophia as they walked to the car. His hand hovered near her elbow, not quite touching, but ready to steady her if she stumbled. It was such a familiar gesture. He'd always been protective of her, even before she'd gotten pregnant. It had been one of the things she'd loved about him, the way he'd made her feel safe, before she'd realized that the danger she needed protection from was often of his own making. The car's interior was exactly as she remembered. Leather seats, tinted windows, the faint scent of Adrian's cologne mixing with the smell of expensive upholstery. How many times had they sat in this car together? How many times had she leaned against his shoulder while he made phone calls about shipments and territories and things she'd chosen not to think too hard about? Marco pulled away from the diner, and Sophia watched through the rain-streaked window as the neon sign grew smaller. Rosie's Diner. Open 24 hours. Her sanctuary for the past 6 months. Her hiding place. Her attempt at a normal life. Gone, just like that. "Where are we going?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Home." "It's not my home anymore." "It never stopped being your home, Sophia. Your things are still there, your clothes, your books. I couldn't—" He stopped himself. "I left everything exactly as it was." The admission surprised her. She'd assumed he would have cleared out her belongings immediately, erasing any trace of her presence. That's what she would have expected from a man like Adrian Valente. Clean breaks. No sentimentality. But then, she was learning that her assumptions about Adrian might have been wrong about a lot of things. The drive took 2 hours. 2 hours of tense silence broken only by the sound of rain against the car and the occasional phone call Adrian took, speaking in low tones about business matters Sophia didn't want to understand. She dozed off at some point, exhaustion finally overwhelming her anxiety. She woke when the car stopped. Through the window, she saw the familiar high-rise building. Adrian's penthouse occupied the entire top floor. She'd loved it once. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the view of the city, the sense of being above it all. Now it just felt like a very expensive cage. "Can you walk?" Adrian asked as Marco opened the door. "Or should I—" "I can walk." Sophia didn't want to think about what he'd been about to offer. Being carried into the building like some rescued damsel felt like a step too far. The elevator ride was silent. Sophia caught her reflection in the mirrored walls and barely recognized herself. When had she gotten so tired looking? So worn? Her hair, once carefully styled, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her diner uniform was stained and rumpled. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman barely hanging on. Next to her, Adrian looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Even soaked from the rain, even at whatever ungodly hour it was, he radiated power and control. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Sophia stepped out and was immediately hit with a wave of memory. The last time she'd stood here, it had been 3 a.m. Adrian had been asleep. She'd packed a single bag with essentials, left her phone and credit cards behind, and slipped out like a thief. "Your room is ready," Adrian said, gesturing down the hall. "Your old room, I mean. Unless—" He paused. "The doctor will be here in an hour. You should rest until then." "My old room." Sophia processed this. "Not your room. Our room," he corrected quietly. "But I'm not assuming anything, Sophia. You'll have your own space, your own privacy. I'm not keeping you prisoner." "Aren't you?" "You're free to leave anytime you want." His voice was steady, but something flickered in his eyes. "But I'm asking you not to, not yet. Not until we figure this out." "Figure what out?" "Everything." He gestured at her belly. "Our son. Your health. What happens next? All of it." Sophia wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her. And despite everything, despite all her fear and anger, part of her felt relieved. Relieved to be somewhere safe, somewhere comfortable, somewhere she didn't have to pretend to be fine when she was falling apart. 1 week, she found herself saying. "I'll stay 1 week for the baby's health. Then we reassess." 1 week. Adrian agreed too quickly, and Sophia realized he'd probably have agreed to one day if it meant keeping her here. Dr. Chen will want to do a full workup, blood tests, ultrasound, make sure everything is progressing normally. It is. I've been careful. I'm sure you have been. His voice softened. But humor me, please. The please surprised her. Adrian Valente didn't say please. He gave orders. He expected obedience. But here he was, asking, almost begging. Fine, she conceded. Now where's my room? I'm exhausted. Adrian led her down the familiar hallway. Her old room, the room she'd used when she'd first moved in, before she'd started spending every night in Adrian's bed, was exactly as she remembered it. The four-poster bed, the reading chair by the window, the bookshelf full of art history books and novels, and her things, her clothes in the closet, her jewelry on the dresser, her favorite painting on the wall, everything exactly where she'd left it, as if she'd only been gone a day instead of 6 months. I told you, Adrian said from the doorway. I left everything as it was. Sophia ran her hand over the dresser, her fingers coming away dusty. Someone had cleaned in here, but not recently. As if Adrian had kept the room perfect for months, waiting for her return, and only recently given up hope. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why keep all this? Why not just move on? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Because I don't give up on things that matter to me. And you, Sophia, you've always mattered more than you understood. He left before she could respond, closing the door gently behind him. Sophia stood in the middle of the room, one hand on her belly, and finally let herself cry. For the life she'd left behind. For the life she'd tried to build. For the impossibility of the situation she now found herself in, and for the treacherous part of her heart that had leaped when Adrian had said she mattered. She'd left because she'd been terrified of the violence, of raising a child in a world where death was a business decision. But she'd also left because loving Adrian Valente was like loving a force of nature, beautiful and terrible, and ultimately destructive. 6 months hadn't changed that. 6 months hadn't changed how her body responded to his presence, how her heart raced when he was near, how some broken part of her had felt relief when he'd found her, despite knowing she should only feel fear. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, wiping at her eyes. A woman in her 50s entered, pulling a medical bag on wheels. "Miss Bennett? I'm Dr. Chen. Mr. Valente asked me to conduct a prenatal examination." "At 2 in the morning?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Mr. Valente can be quite persuasive when it comes to matters of importance. And I must say, the fee he's paying for a house call at this hour was persuasive enough to overcome any concerns about the time." Despite everything, Sophia found herself almost smiling. That was so typically Adrian. Throw money at a problem until it disappeared. "Let's get started then," she said, lowering herself into the reading chair. "What do you need?" The examination took nearly an hour. Doctor Chen was thorough and professional, checking Sophia's vitals, measuring her belly, listening to the baby's heartbeat. That sound, the rapid thump, 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 never failed to make Sophia's throat tight with emotion. "Everything seems to be progressing well," Dr. Chen said finally, making notes on her tablet. "Though I do have some concerns about your stress levels and your weight. You're slightly underweight for this stage of pregnancy. Have you been having trouble eating?" "Just morning sickness, and being on my feet all day doesn't help." "Well, you won't have that problem anymore." Dr. Chen packed up her equipment. "Mr. Valente has asked me to coordinate your care going forward. I'd like to see you twice a week until delivery, more often if any issues arise. I'm also going to prescribe some prenatal vitamins, better quality than what you'd get at a free clinic, and I want you on bed rest for the next week. Your body needs to recover from the stress it's been under." "Bed rest? I can't just—" "Doctor's orders." Dr. Chen's voice was firm but kind. "You're in your 3rd trimester carrying what appears to be a good-sized baby boy. You need to rest. Let Mr. Valente take care of you. I know his reputation can be intimidating, but I've been his personal physician for 5 years, and I can tell you this, when he cares about someone, he's absolutely devoted to their well-being." After Dr. Chen left, Sophia changed into one of her old nightgowns, silk, expensive, nothing like the worn cotton she'd been sleeping in for months, and crawled into bed. The mattress was infinitely better than the lumpy one in her basement apartment. The sheets were high thread count Egyptian cotton, the pillows perfectly soft. She should have been comfortable. Should have been relieved to be somewhere safe and warm and dry. Instead, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what she'd just agreed to. 1 week, she'd said, but as she pressed her hand to her belly, feeling her son move beneath her palm, she wondered if 1 week would be enough, or if she'd already been caught again in Adrian Valente's gravity, unable to escape even if she wanted to. The truth was, part of her didn't want to escape. Part of her had missed this, had missed him, had spent 6 months telling herself she'd done the right thing while crying herself to sleep in a basement apartment that smelled like cooking oil from the restaurant below. A soft knock on the door made her jump. "Come in," she called, pulling the covers up to her chest. Adrian entered and she realized he'd changed. Gone was the expensive suit, replaced by simple black pajama pants and a t-shirt. She'd seen him like this before, late at night, when the armor of his public persona fell away and he was just a man, just Adrian. "I wanted to check on you," he said, staying near the door. "Make sure you had everything you needed." "I'm fine. Dr. Chen was thorough." "Good." He paused. "She said bed rest for a week." "I heard." "I'll have my assistant arrange for anything you need, books, movies, whatever helps pass the time." "Adrian." Sophia sat up slightly. "Why are you doing this, really? You could have just, I don't know, arranged for child support or something. Why bring me here?" He crossed the room slowly, stopping at the foot of her bed. In the dim light from the hallway, his features were shadowed, making him look younger somehow, more vulnerable. "Because that child you're carrying is my son," he said quietly. "My heir, my legacy. I won't have him raised without me. I won't have him grow up not knowing his father. Is that all he is to you? An heir?" "No." Adrian's jaw clenched. "He's also part of you, and I—" He stopped himself, seeming to struggle with the words. "I never stopped loving you, Sophia. Even when I thought you were dead. Even when I thought I'd never see you again. You want to know why I kept your room exactly as it was? Because letting it go felt like accepting you were really gone. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't accept a world where you didn't exist." The confession hit Sophia square in the chest. This was the Adrian she'd fallen in love with. The one who could be brutally honest about his emotions when he chose to be. The one who'd told her once that she made him want to be something more than just a crime boss. Something better. "Adrian, I know what you saw that night scared you," he continued. "I know you think I'm a monster. Maybe you're right, but I'm a monster who loves you, who wants to protect you and our son, who will do whatever it takes to keep you both safe. Even if safe means keeping me prisoner? You're not a prisoner. I told you, you can leave whenever you want, but I'm asking you to stay, to give me a chance to show you that there's more to me than the violence, that I can be a good father, a good partner." "You put a bullet in a man's head," Sophia whispered. "I can't just forget that." "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to understand. That man was sent to kill you, Sophia. He had photos of you, plans to kidnap you, and use you as leverage against me. I did what I had to do to protect you." "You could have called the police." Adrian's laugh was harsh. "The police? You really think the police would have protected you from the Morelli family? You think they would have done anything except fill out paperwork while you disappeared? So you took justice into your own hands. I took your safety into my own hands, and I'd do it again without hesitation." Sophia stared at him, this complicated man who dominated her life so completely. Who could be tender and brutal in equal measure? Who claimed to love her while running a criminal empire? "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "Be with you. Raise a child in your world." "Then don't," Adrian said simply. "Stay for the week. Let Dr. Chen make sure you and the baby are healthy. Let me prove that I can take care of you without asking for anything in return. Then decide." "And if I decide to leave? Then I'll let you go." The words sounded like they cost him. "But I'll be part of my son's life, Sophia. That's non-negotiable. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere comfortable. I'll provide for both of you, but I won't be shut out of his life." It was the most reasonable he'd ever been about anything. The old Adrian would have simply insisted she stay, would have used his power to keep her here. But this Adrian, tired, vulnerable, standing in her doorway at 2 a.m, was giving her a choice. "Okay," she heard herself say. "1 week, we'll see how it goes." Relief washed over his features. "Thank you." He turned to leave, and Sophia found herself saying, "Adrian?" "Yes?" "I never stopped loving you either. That was the problem. If I hadn't loved you so much, leaving wouldn't have hurt so badly." He stood frozen in the doorway for a long moment. Then, without turning around, he said, "Get some rest, Sophia. You need it." After he left, Sophia lay back against the pillows, one hand on her belly, where her son was doing what felt like gymnastics. "What have I gotten us into?" she whispered to him. "What am I supposed to do?" The baby kicked in response, as if to say he had no answers either. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the city clean. And inside Adrian Valente's penthouse, Sophia Bennett closed her eyes and tried not to think about how right it felt to be home. Even if home was the most dangerous place she could possibly be. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows when Sophia woke, disoriented and aching. For a confused moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then memory crashed back, Adrian finding her at the diner, the tense car ride, his confession that he'd never stopped loving her. She pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the familiar flutter of movement. "Good morning to you too," she murmured to her son. A soft knock on the door preceded a woman entering with a breakfast tray. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and an efficient manner. "Good morning, Ms. Bennett. I'm Elena, the housekeeper. Mr. Valente asked me to bring you breakfast." The tray held fresh fruit, whole grain toast, scrambled eggs, and orange juice. Real food, not the stale donut she'd been eating at the diner or the instant ramen that had become her staple. "Thank you," Sophia said, her stomach growling traitorously. "Mr. Masucci. Valente also asked me to tell you that he's arranged for a physical therapist to visit this afternoon. Something about bed rest being easier with proper support." Elena set the tray on the bedside table. "Is there anything else you need?" "No, this is perfect." After Elena left, Sophia ate slowly, savoring each bite. She hadn't realized how much she'd been merely surviving until she was faced with actual nourishment. The eggs were perfectly cooked, the fruit was fresh and sweet. Even the toast was the expensive artisan bread she'd loved before. She was finishing the last of her orange juice when Adrian appeared in the doorway. He wore a tailored suit today, every inch the powerful businessman, but his eyes were shadowed as if he hadn't slept. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Stuffed. Elena brought enough food for 3 people." "You're eating for 2. You need to gain weight." His tone was matter of fact, but she could hear the concern underneath. "Doctor, Chen's orders." "I'm aware." Sophia set down her glass. "About last night, you don't need to say anything." Adrian crossed to the window, hands in his pockets. "I meant what I said. No pressure. Just let me take care of you for now." "That's what I wanted to talk about. The taking care of me part." Sophia shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. "I need to understand the rules here, what you expect from me." "Rules?" He turned to face her. "Sophia, you're not one of my employees. There are no rules." "There are always rules with you, Adrian, spoken or unspoken." He was quiet for a moment, considering. "Fair enough. You want rules? Fine. Rule 1, you rest. Doctor's orders are non-negotiable. Rule 2, you eat properly. Elena will bring you 3 meals a day plus snacks. Rule 3, you let Dr. Chen monitor you and the baby without argument. And in return? In return?" He looked genuinely confused. "There is no in return, Sophia. This isn't a transaction. You're carrying my child. I'm making sure you're both healthy. That's it. Nothing is ever that simple with you. Maybe I'm trying to be simple for once." He moved closer to the bed, but maintained a careful distance. "I know you don't trust me. I know you think I have some ulterior motive. But the truth is, I just want you safe, both of you. Whatever else happens, that's up to you." But Sophia studied his face, looking for the deception. But all she saw was exhaustion and something that looked almost like vulnerability. "Okay," she said finally. 1 week. We agreed on 1 week." 1 week, he confirmed. Then, more quietly, "Though I'm hoping you'll stay longer." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened instantly. "I need to take this. I'll check on you later." He was gone before she could ask what was wrong, leaving Sophia alone with her thoughts, and the uneasy feeling that whatever had just happened on that phone call was serious. The rest of the morning passed slowly. Sophia dozed, read one of her old books, and tried not to think about the fact that she was back in Adrian's world. Elena brought lunch, a perfectly grilled chicken salad with homemade dressing, and mentioned that the physical therapist would arrive at 2. The therapist, a cheerful woman named Rita, spent an hour teaching Sophia gentle stretches and positioning techniques to ease the back pain that had become constant. "You've been on your feet too much," Rita said, working out a knot in Sophia's lower back. "These muscles are screaming." Hazard of waitressing while pregnant. "Well, you're off your feet now. Mr. Valente made it very clear that your comfort is the top priority." Rita adjusted a pillow behind Sophia's back. "He seems very concerned about you." Sophia didn't know how to respond to that. Yes, Adrian was concerned. He'd always been protective, even possessive. But concern and control often looked the same with him. After Rita left, Sophia found herself restless despite her exhaustion. She walked to the window, looking out over the city she'd once called home. From this height, everything looked clean and ordered. You couldn't see the violence, couldn't see the deals being made in dark alleys, or the blood being spilled over territory disputes. From up here, Adrian's world looked almost civilized. The illusion shattered when she heard raised voices from down the hall. Adrian's office. She shouldn't eavesdrop, she knew that. But her feet carried her toward the sound anyway, some terrible curiosity drawing her forward. "Can't be serious," a man's voice said. Sophia recognized it as Marco, Adrian's second in command. "The Morellis are pushing into the waterfront. If we don't respond—" I said no. Adrian's voice was cold. "No retaliatory strikes. Not right now. With all due respect, boss, they're going to see that as weakness. I don't care what they see it as. I have other priorities at the moment." "Other priorities?" Another voice, Tony, she thought, one of Adrian's oldest associates. "Adrian, this is our territory, our business. You can't just, I can do whatever I want. Or have you forgotten who's in charge here?" The temperature in the conversation dropped several degrees. Sophia pressed herself against the wall outside the office, heart pounding. "Of course not, boss," Tony said quickly. "We're just concerned. The men are asking questions. They want to know why we're not fighting back. Tell them I'm handling it my way." Adrian's tone softened slightly. "Look, I know this isn't what you're used to from me, but I need you to trust me. Keep our defenses tight on the waterfront, but no offensive moves. Not yet. And if they push harder, then we'll reassess. But for now, we hold our position." There was a pause. "I need some time, Marco. A few weeks, maybe a month. Can you give me that?" "A month?" Marco sounded incredulous. "What's changed, Adrian? This isn't like you." Sophia held her breath, waiting for his answer. "What's changed is that I have a son on the way," Adrian said quietly, "and I'm trying very hard not to be the kind of father who gets killed in a gang war before his child is born." The silence that followed was profound. "You found her," Marco said finally. "Miss Bennett, you found her." "I did. And she's here, and she's pregnant, 7 months. Jesus," Tony breathed. "Does anyone else know?" "Just you two and Elena, and it stays that way. If word gets out that I have a pregnant girlfriend under my roof, every enemy I have will see her as a target. So this information doesn't leave this room. Understood?" "Of course, boss." "Good. Now get out. Both of you. I have work to do." Sophia barely made it back to her room before the office door opened. She closed her door silently and leaned against it, heart racing. Adrian was changing his business strategy because of her, because of their son. He was willing to look weak to his associates, to risk losing territory, all to avoid the kind of violence that had driven her away. She didn't know what to do with that information. That evening, Adrian joined her for dinner. Elena had set up a small table near the window with 2 place settings, an intimacy Sophia hadn't agreed to but found herself unable to protest. "You don't have to eat with me," she said as he sat down. "I'm sure you have work." "Work can wait." He served her a portion of the roasted salmon Elena had prepared. "Besides, we should talk." "About?" "About what happens next? Logistics, plans." He paused. "Names." "Names? For our son. Have you thought about it?" Sophia had thought about it constantly. "I had some ideas, Michael, James, something normal." "Normal." Adrian's mouth quirked. "You mean American, not Italian." "I mean not connected to your world." "He is connected to my world, Sophia. He's my son. That doesn't change regardless of what we name him." "Which is exactly why I wanted to raise him away from all this." Adrian set down his fork. "I overheard you. Outside my office earlier." Sophia's cheeks flushed. I didn't mean to eavesdrop." "But you did." So you heard what I told Marco and Tony. I'm trying, Sophia. I'm trying to find a way to be both the man my business requires and the father our son deserves. By postponing a gang war? By choosing my battles more carefully, by not rushing into violence as my first response. He met her eyes. I know what you saw that night. I know it terrified you. But what you didn't see was the restraint I showed leading up to that moment. The weeks of attempted negotiations, the warnings I issued. That man didn't die because I was trigger happy. He died because he'd exhausted every other option. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand that I'm not a mindless killer. Every violent act I commit is calculated, necessary, and increasingly rare because I'm trying to transition to more legitimate business. Legitimate business? Sophia couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. Real estate, investments, import-export that actually involves legal goods. Adrian leaned back in his chair. It takes time to move away from the old business model, but I've been working on it for 2 years now, quietly, carefully. Why? Because I knew I couldn't be with you, truly be with you, while running a purely criminal enterprise. You deserved better than that. I was trying to build something better for us. His voice turned bitter. Then you left before I could show you what I was building. Sophia absorbed this, trying to reconcile it with the man she thought she knew. If that's true, why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't safe yet. Because there are people in my organization who would see any move toward legitimacy as weakness. Who would use it against me? He stood, walking to the window. The transition has to be gradual, invisible. By the time people realize what's happened, it needs to be too late to stop. And how long will this transition take? 5 years, maybe 10. 10 years? Sophia's voice rose. You expect our son to grow up in this world for 10 years? I expect our son to grow up with a father who's working toward giving him a better future, a legitimate legacy. Adrian turned to face her. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly, Sophia. I'm asking you to give me time to prove this to you, to show you that I'm serious about change. And in the meantime, while you're slowly transitioning, what happens when the Morellis push harder, when someone else decides you're weak and tries to take your territory? Then I defend what's mine, but I do it smart, strategically, with minimal bloodshed. He crossed back to the table, bracing his hands on the back of his chair. I won't lie to you, there will be violence. My world doesn't allow for complete peace, but I'm trying to reduce it, to move away from it. That has to count for something. Sophia wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her again. The baby kicked forcefully, as if protesting the tension in the conversation. He's active tonight, Adrian observed, his eyes dropping to her belly. He doesn't like conflict. Sophia rubbed the spot where tiny feet pressed against her ribs. Whenever I'm stressed, he kicks more. May I? Adrian gestured toward her stomach. The request surprised her. During their relationship before, he'd always been careful about physical boundaries, as if afraid his capacity for violence might somehow contaminate gentle touches. Okay, she said quietly. He moved around the table and knelt beside her chair. His hand hovered over her belly for a moment before settling gently on the curve. Almost immediately, the baby kicked against his palm. The expression on Adrian's face was something Sophia had never seen before. Pure wonder. Absolute awe. He's strong, Adrian said, his voice rough with emotion. Takes after his father. Adrian looked up at her, and for a moment they were just two people marveling at the miracle they'd created. Not a crime boss and his runaway girlfriend, not two people on opposite sides of an impossible situation, just parents. Then the moment passed, and Adrian stood, clearing his throat. You should rest. Dr. Chen said, I know what Dr. Chen said. Sophia smiled slightly. You've quoted her at me 4 times today. I'll quote her 4 more times if it means you take care of yourself. He helped her stand, his hand gentle on her elbow. Come on, let's get you back to bed. As they walked to her room, Sophia found herself leaning on him slightly. Not because she needed the support, though she did, but because some part of her wanted the contact, wanted to remember what it felt like to have his strength beside her. Adrian, she said as they reached her door. Yes? Thank you. For today. For all of this. His smile was soft, genuine. You don't need to thank me, Sophia. Taking care of you and our son, it's not a favor. It's everything. After he left, Sophia changed into her nightgown and climbed into bed. Through the walls, she could hear Adrian moving around in his room down the hall, close enough to come if she needed him, far enough to give her space. She fell asleep wondering how long they could maintain this careful distance. And more troubling, wondering if she even wanted to. The next 3 days fell into a rhythm. Mornings brought breakfast with Elena, gentle exercise with Rita, and hours of reading or sleeping. Afternoons brought Dr. Chen for checkups and monitoring. Evenings brought dinner with Adrian, where they talked carefully around the big issues and focused on safer topics. Baby supplies they'd need, names they were considering, Sophia's preference for the nursery design. It was almost peaceful, almost normal. Then the fourth night shattered everything. Sophia woke to the sound of shouting, urgent voices, the sharp crack of something breaking. She sat up, heart pounding, one hand instinctively going to her belly. The door to her room burst open. Marco stood there, gun in hand, face grim. "Miss Bennett, I need you to come with me. Now." "What's happening?" "The penthouse is compromised. Someone got past our security." He crossed to her, helping her out of bed. "We need to get you to the safe room." "Where's Adrian?" "Handling it. Let's move." Marco rushed her down the hall, practically carrying her. Behind them, she heard gunfire. Sharp cracks that made her flinch. She'd heard that sound before. The night she'd left. The night she'd watched Adrian kill a man. In here. Marco shoved open a hidden door she'd never noticed before. Behind it was a small, reinforced room. "You'll be safe. Don't come out until Mr. Valente or I come for you." "Marco." But he was already gone, pulling the door shut. She heard the heavy lock engage. Sophia stood in the dim emergency lighting, shaking. The safe room was equipped with everything someone might need during a lockdown. Water, non-perishable food, a first aid kit, even a cot. But all she could think about was Adrian. Was he hurt? Was he... No. She couldn't think like that. She sat on the cot, both hands pressed to her belly, where the baby was kicking frantically. "It's okay," she whispered to him. "We're safe. Your father will make sure we're safe." The words felt hollow. Because how could they ever really be safe in this world? How could she raise a child knowing that any night might bring armed men to their door? Minutes stretched into hours. Or maybe just minutes that felt like hours. She lost track of time in the windowless room, fear making every second feel eternal. Finally, the lock disengaged. The door opened. Adrian stood there, blood on his shirt, a cut above his left eye, but alive. Very much alive. "Sophia." He crossed to her in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms. "Are you hurt? Is the baby—" We're fine." She pulled back to look at him. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing. A graze." He touched the cut above his eye absently. "The threat is neutralized. We're secure." "What happened?" "The Morellis. They sent a team to make a statement." His jaw clenched. "They knew you were here. Someone talked." "But you said—" "I know what I said. We're handling the leak." He cupped her face in his hands, searching her eyes. "I need to know you're really okay, both of you. The baby's been kicking, a lot, but I think that's just stress. I'm calling Dr. Chen." Adrian pulled out his phone. "Adrian, it's 3 in the morning. I don't care what time it is." He was already dialing. "Dr. Chen? It's Valente. I need you at the penthouse immediately. There was an incident. Sophia and the baby appear fine, but I want them checked thoroughly." While they waited for the doctor, Adrian held Sophia close, one hand resting on her belly as if he could protect their son through sheer force of will. "This is why I left," Sophia whispered. "This. Exactly this." "I know." His voice was rough. "I know, and I'm sorry. I thought I had more time. Thought I could keep you safe while I dealt with the Morelli situation." "There will always be a situation, Adrian. That's the problem. There will always be someone trying to hurt you, to hurt the people you care about." "Not always." He pulled back to look at her. "I meant what I said about transitioning to legitimate business, about building something different. But tonight proved that I can't do it from here. Not while keeping you and our son safe." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to leave the city, at least temporarily. I have a property upstate, completely secure, remote. No one will know we're there except my most trusted people." "You want me to go into hiding? Again?" "I want you safe. There's a difference." His eyes were intense, pleading. "Please, Sophia. After tonight, I can't risk you being in the line of fire. Not while you're pregnant. Not ever." Sophia thought about the gunfire, the terror of not knowing if Adrian was alive or dead. The absolute helplessness of being locked in a safe room while violence raged outside. How long? She asked. Until the baby is born? Maybe longer. Depends on how quickly I can resolve the Morelli problem. And you? Would you be there? Not all the time. I need to be here to handle business, but I'd visit every few days, and Marco would stay with you, full security team. It felt like running away again, like admitting defeat. But looking at the blood on Adrian's shirt, feeling their son kick anxiously against her ribs, Sophia knew she didn't have a choice. Okay, she said quietly. We'll go. Relief washed over Adrian's features. Thank you. We'll leave tomorrow. Tonight, if Dr. Chen clears you for travel. Dr. Chen arrived 20 minutes later and spent an hour examining Sophia thoroughly. Elevated stress hormones, elevated blood pressure, but the baby appears fine, she said finally. Though I strongly recommend against any travel for at least 24 hours. Let her system calm down. 24 hours, Adrian agreed. Then we move. After Dr. Chen left, Adrian insisted Sophia sleep in his room. I'm not letting you out of my sight, he said firmly. Not after tonight. She was too exhausted to argue. His bed was larger than hers, the mattress even more comfortable. She crawled under the covers while Adrian showered, washing away the blood and violence of the night. When he emerged wearing only sleep pants, Sophia couldn't help but notice the new bruises forming on his ribs, the split knuckles, the evidence of a fight she'd only heard but not seen. How many were there? She asked as he climbed into bed beside her, maintaining a careful distance. 4. All dealt with. Dealt with? You mean... I mean, they won't be coming back. His tone left no room for questions about what that meant. Sophia closed her eyes. I don't want to know, do I? No, you don't. They lay in silence for a long moment. Then Sophia felt Adrian's hand find hers in the darkness, their fingers intertwining. I will keep you safe, he said quietly. Whatever it takes. You and our son, you're everything to me. I won't let anything happen to either of you. Can you promise that? Really promise it? I can promise I'll die trying. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was the only honest answer he could give. In Adrian's world, there were no guarantees, only determination and the willingness to do whatever was necessary. Sophia squeezed his hand. The house upstate. What's it like? Peaceful, quiet. There's a lake, woods, nothing for miles except nature and security. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I bought it years ago as a retreat, somewhere to go when the city got too loud. I think you'll like it. Will I be able to go outside? Or will I be locked in another safe room? You'll have freedom. Supervised freedom, but freedom. The property is 20 acres. You can walk, sit by the lake, breathe clean air. He paused. I want you to be comfortable, Sophia, not imprisoned. Even though keeping me safe means keeping me isolated? Even though? Sophia thought about that, about trading one form of captivity for another. But at least in the upstate house, she wouldn't be waiting for gunmen to break down the door, wouldn't be listening for violence in the hallway. Okay, she said again. We'll make it work. Adrian's hand tightened on hers. Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day. But sleep didn't come easily. Sophia lay awake, feeling Adrian's warmth beside her, listening to his breathing even out as exhaustion finally claimed him. Her free hand rested on her belly, where their son had finally settled into stillness. Tomorrow they would leave the city. Tomorrow she would once again disappear, this time with Adrian's full knowledge and protection. Tomorrow would begin a new phase of this impossible situation. But tonight, in the darkness, with Adrian's hand in hers and their son safe in her womb, Sophia let herself feel something she hadn't allowed in months. Hope. Maybe Adrian really could change. Maybe he really could build something better for their son. Maybe there was a future where love and safety could coexist with the reality of who Adrian was. Or maybe she was lying to herself again, finding reasons to stay with a man she should run from. She wouldn't know until she tried. The drive upstate took 4 hours, though it felt longer with Sophia's anxiety making every mile stretch. She sat in the back of the armored SUV, Adrian beside her, while Marco drove and 2 additional security vehicles flanked them front and rear. Through the tinted windows, she watched the city give way to suburbs, then countryside, then forest. Almost there, Adrian said, noticing her restlessness. His hand covered hers on the seat between them. Another 20 minutes. Sophia nodded. one hand pressed to her belly, where the baby had been unusually quiet. Dr. Chen had assured her that decreased movement was normal after stress, that the baby was likely just resting, but the stillness unnerved her nonetheless. "Talk to me," Adrian said softly. "What are you thinking?" "That I've spent the last 6 months running from you, and now I'm running with you. I'm trying to figure out which version of running feels more insane. Both versions are insane, but at least this time, you're not alone." The house appeared suddenly through the trees, a sprawling modern structure of glass and stone that somehow managed to look both luxurious and natural against the forest backdrop. A lake stretched beyond it, mirror smooth in the afternoon light. "This is your retreat?" Sophia asked, taking in the property. "It's massive. I like space, privacy." Adrian helped her out of the vehicle, his hand steady at her elbow. "Come on, I'll show you around." The interior was nothing like the penthouse. Where his city home was all sleek edges and urban sophistication, this place felt warm, comfortable. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the lake, filling the space with natural light. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. The furniture was oversized and inviting, the kind you could actually relax on. "The master suite is upstairs," Adrian said, guiding her through the house. "Lake view, private balcony. I had Elena stock it with everything you might need." The bedroom was stunning, all warm woods and soft fabrics, with French doors opening onto a balcony that overlooked the water. Sophia walked to the window, pressing her palm against the glass. "It's beautiful," she admitted. "I didn't expect this." "What did you expect? A bunker?" "Something like that, yes." Adrian came to stand beside her. "I told you, I want you comfortable, not imprisoned. You can go anywhere on the property. The perimeter is secure, but inside those boundaries, you're free." "And the security team?" "Discreet. You'll see them, but they won't intrude unless necessary." He gestured to a panel on the wall. "There's a panic button in every room. Press it, and they'll be here in seconds. But I don't anticipate needing it. No one knows about this place except my inner circle." Sophia turned to face him. "To the same inner circle that includes whoever leaked my presence to the Morellis?" Adrian's expression darkened. "That leak has been identified and handled. It won't happen again." "Handled how?" "Do you really want to know?" She thought about it, then shook her head. Some things were better left unspoken. "How long are you staying?" "Through tomorrow. Then I need to get back to the city. Deal with the Morelli situation properly this time." He touched her face gently. "But I'll be back in 3 days, 4 at most. And you can call me any time, day or night." The thought of being here alone, well, alone except for Marco and the security team, sent a flutter of anxiety through her chest. But it was still better than being in the city, waiting for the next attack. "Okay," she said. 3 days. That evening, Adrian made dinner while Sophia sat at the kitchen island, watching him move around the space with surprising competence. She'd forgotten that he could cook. It was something he'd rarely done at the penthouse, preferring to have meals prepared by a chef or order from expensive restaurants. But here, in this more intimate space, he seemed almost domestic. "Chicken marsala," he announced, plating the food with careful precision. "Your favorite." It had been her favorite, back when they were together. The fact that he remembered after all this time shouldn't have affected her, but it did. They ate on the deck overlooking the lake, watching the sun set through the trees. The baby finally woke up, stretching and kicking with renewed energy. "There he is," Adrian said, watching Sophia's belly move. "I was starting to worry." "Me too. Dr. Chen said the quiet was normal, but..." She trailed off, rubbing the spot where a tiny foot pressed against her ribs. "Can I?" Adrian asked again, as he had that night at dinner in the penthouse. This time Sophia didn't hesitate. She took his hand and placed it on her belly. The baby kicked immediately, as if recognizing his father's touch. Adrian's smile was soft, unguarded. "He's really in there. It still doesn't seem real sometimes." "Tell me about it. I've been carrying him for 7 months, and I still can't quite believe it." "Have you thought more about names?" Adrian asked, his hand still resting on her stomach. "I have, but I'm curious what you'd choose." "Alessandro," he said without hesitation. "After my grandfather. He was a good man, one of the few in my family who died of old age rather than violence." "Alessandro Valente." Sophia tested the name. "It's very Italian." "He is Italian. Half. Anyway, Adrian's thumb traced a gentle circle on her belly. But we could use a middle name that's more American. Alessandro Michael. Alessandro James. You were listening when I mentioned those names. I listen to everything you say, Sophia, even when you think I'm not paying attention. The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight. This was the Adrian she'd fallen in love with, attentive, tender, completely focused on her, as if she were the only thing that mattered in his world. Alessandro James Valente, she said slowly. It has a nice ring to it. Adrian's smile widened. So we're decided? Our son is Alessandro? I suppose we are. Sophia felt a flutter of something, joy, maybe, or hope, at the idea of naming their child together, of making this decision as partners rather than adversaries. They stayed on the deck until the stars came out, talking about nursery designs and parenting philosophies and all the normal things expectant parents discussed. For a few hours, they weren't a crime boss and the woman who'd run from him. They were just Adrian and Sophia, preparing for their son's arrival. But reality intruded when Adrian's phone rang, shattering the peaceful moment. Valente, he answered, his voice instantly shifting to business mode. He listened for a moment, his expression hardening. When? Where? Another pause. No, absolutely not. I don't care what they're offering. The answer is no. He stood, walking to the far end of the deck. Handle it, Marco. I'll be back tomorrow. When he returned to the table, the softness was gone from his face. I need to leave tonight. Something's come up that can't wait. Sophia felt disappointment crash over her. You said tomorrow. I know, I'm sorry, but this is urgent. He crouched beside her chair, taking her hands. You'll be safe here. I've tripled the security detail. Marco will stay with you personally until I get back. What happened? Nothing for you to worry about. Just business that requires my immediate attention. He stood, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I'll call you when I get to the city, and I'll be back as soon as I can. He was gone within the hour, leaving Sophia alone in the big house with only the security team for company. Marco appeared shortly after Adrian left, his expression professionally neutral. Ms. Bennett, I'll be in the guest house if you need anything. The perimeter is secure, and we have eyes on all access points. You're perfectly safe. Thank you, Marco. Sophia managed to smile. I appreciate it. After he left, she wandered the house restlessly, too keyed up to sleep despite her exhaustion. She ended up on the bedroom balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching moonlight dance on the lake. Her phone rang. Adrian. Did I wake you? He asked. I couldn't sleep. Me either. I'm in the car about an hour from the city. He paused. I'm sorry I had to leave. The timing is terrible. What happened? Really? The Morellis made a move on one of our distribution centers. They're escalating faster than I anticipated. His voice was tight with controlled anger. I need to shut this down before it gets worse. How are you going to shut it down? However, I have to. The grim finality in his tone made her shiver. But I'm going to try diplomacy first. See if we can reach an agreement that doesn't involve more bloodshed. And if they won't negotiate, then I'll do what's necessary to protect what's mine. He exhaled slowly. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I won't lie to you, Sophia. My world doesn't always allow for peaceful solutions. I know. And she did know. She'd always known, really. She'd just tried to ignore it for as long as she could. Be careful. Always. His voice softened. Get some sleep. You need to rest. You too. I will. After I handle this. The line went dead, leaving Sophia alone with her thoughts and the sound of wind through the trees. The next 3 days passed in strange isolation. Sophia fell into a routine. Breakfast on the deck, gentle walks around the property, with one of the security team shadowing at a discreet distance. Afternoons spent reading or napping. Dr. Chen made a house call to check on her and Alessandro, pronouncing them both healthy despite the stress of recent events. But Adrian didn't call, didn't come back, and Sophia's anxiety grew with each passing hour. On the 4th day, she finally broke down and called him. The phone rang 6 times before he answered, and when he did, his voice sounded strained. Sophia, is everything okay? That's what I should be asking you. You said 3 days, Adrian. It's been 4. I know. I'm sorry. Things got complicated. He sighed. The Morellis weren't interested in negotiating. We've been in a standoff for the past 72 hours. A standoff? What does that mean? It means I'm keeping them contained while trying to find a solution that doesn't end in open war. He sounded exhausted, but I'm making progress. I should be able to come back tomorrow. Should be? Or will be? Will be, he amended. I promise. Tomorrow evening, I'll be there. But tomorrow evening came and went with no Adrian, just a terse text. Delayed. Soon. Sophia wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she called Marco. What's really happening in the city? She demanded. And don't give me the sanitized version. Marco hesitated. Ms. Bennett, I don't think... Marco, please. I need to know. There was an ambush, he said finally. The Morellis set a trap. Mr. Valente and his team walked into it 3 days ago. Sophia's blood went cold. Is he hurt? He's alive, but yes, he was injured. Nothing life-threatening, but serious enough that he's been reluctant to leave the situation unresolved. He doesn't want to come back here until he knows the threat is completely neutralized. How injured? Gunshot wound to the shoulder. Some broken ribs. Concussion. Marco's voice was grim. He's being stubborn about medical treatment. Says he doesn't have time to be sidelined. That idiot! Sophia felt fear and fury war in her chest. Get him on the phone. Now. Ms. Bennett. Now, Marco. A minute later, Adrian's voice came through. Sophia, I'm fine. You were shot. You have broken ribs and a concussion. That is not fine. It's handled. I'm managing. You're being an idiot. Sophia paced the bedroom, one hand pressed to her belly, where Alessandro was kicking furiously, as if he could sense his mother's distress. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from infection or internal bleeding. I've had worse. That's not the reassurance you think it is. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Adrian, please, see a doctor, get proper treatment, then come back here and rest. I can't rest until the Morelli situation is resolved. Then resolve it, decisively, whatever that means. But stop dragging this out because you're trying to find a peaceful solution. If they're not interested in peace, give them war and be done with it. The line was silent for a long moment. You're telling me to escalate? I'm telling you to end it, one way or another, because watching you slowly bleed out while trying to be someone you're not is worse than accepting who you are. The words hurt to say, but they were true. I know what you are, Adrian. I've always known. Stop trying to be gentle for my sake and just finish this. Sophia, your son needs his father alive. She stopped herself. Just end it and come home. Another long silence. Then, okay, give me 48 hours. You have 24... That's not enough time to... 24 hours, Adrian, or I'm coming back to the city myself. You wouldn't. Try me. She heard him exhale, a sound caught between frustration and something that might have been admiration. 24 hours. I'll be there tomorrow night. Alive and in one piece. Alive and in one piece, he promised. I love you, Sophia. You know that, right? The confession caught her off guard. He hadn't said those words since she'd left, hadn't allowed himself that vulnerability. I know, she whispered. Just come back to us. The next 24 hours were the longest of Sophia's life. She tried to distract herself with books, with walks, with planning the nursery they'd need to set up. But her mind kept returning to Adrian, wondering what ending it meant, what he was doing to resolve the Morelli situation. She didn't want to think about it too closely, didn't want to imagine the violence that was probably unfolding in the city while she sat safely by a peaceful lake. Night fell, and still no word. Sophia ate dinner mechanically, tasting nothing. Marco joined her, his phone constantly buzzing with updates he wouldn't share. He's okay, Marco said finally, responding to her unspoken question. It's done. He's on his way. Relief flooded through her. When will he be here? Hour and a half, maybe 2. Sophia spent that time pacing, unable to settle. She'd put her foot down, had essentially ordered Adrian to be himself rather than trying to be someone softer. What did that make her? An accomplice? An enabler? Or just a realist who understood that some men couldn't change their nature no matter how hard they tried? She was standing on the deck when headlights finally appeared through the trees. One vehicle, moving fast. It pulled up to the house, and Adrian emerged, moving stiffly. Sophia met him at the door and her breath caught. He looked terrible, pale, exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a visible bandage on his shoulder where his shirt hung open. You should see the other guy, he said, attempting a smile. That's not funny. But she was already moving toward him, careful of his injuries as she wrapped her arms around his waist. You're an idiot. So you've mentioned. He held her gently, his good arm around her shoulders. But I'm your idiot. And the Morelli problem is solved. How solved? Completely solved. Permanently. His voice was flat, emotionless. The voice he used when discussing violence he'd committed. They won't be bothering us again. Sophia didn't ask for details. She didn't want to know. Instead, she just held him, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek, reassuring herself that he was alive and here and safe. Come on, she said finally. Let me see that shoulder. She helped him upstairs, settling him on the bed while she examined the wound. It had been professionally stitched, at least, though the bandage needed changing. The doctor said no strenuous activity for 2 weeks, Adrian said as she worked, which is going to be difficult since I have a business to run. You have people who can run the business for 2 weeks. Sophia secured a fresh bandage. You're staying here and recovering, non-negotiable. Yes, ma'am. She helped him out of the rest of his clothes, noting the extensive bruising on his ribs, the cuts and scrapes that told the story of a brutal fight. Whatever had happened in the city, it had been worse than Marco had let on. How bad was it? She asked quietly, helping him into bed. Bad enough that I'm glad you weren't there to see it. He caught her hand. But it's over now. Really over. I made sure of it. Sophia climbed into bed beside him, careful not to jostle his injuries. Tell me you at least tried to negotiate first. I did. They rejected every offer. They wanted war, Sophia. They wanted to prove they could take me down. His jaw tightened. I couldn't let that stand, not with you and Alessandro to protect. So you ended it. So I ended it. He turned his head to look at her. Are you horrified? Disgusted? She considered the question honestly. I should be. Part of me is, but mostly I'm just relieved you're alive. That's all? That's everything. She touched his face gently, avoiding the bruise on his jaw. I've been trying to make you into someone you're not, Adrian, trying to force you to be softer, safer, more civilized, but that's not who you are, and maybe I need to accept that. What are you saying? I'm saying I see you, the real you, the violent, dangerous, ruthless you, and I'm choosing to stay anyway. The admission felt like both a surrender and a liberation. Not because I approve of what you do, but because I love you in spite of it, or maybe because of it, I don't know anymore. Adrian's expression was unreadable. You love me. I never stopped. That was the problem. I ran away because staying was too hard, but leaving nearly destroyed me. She pressed her hand to her belly. And now we have Alessandro to think about. He deserves to have both his parents. Together. Together, Adrian repeated, as if testing the word. Does that mean what I think it means? It means I'm not leaving after he's born. It means I'm staying, and we're figuring out how to make this work. It means... She took a shaky breath. It means I'm choosing you, choosing us, choosing this impossible, complicated, dangerous life. Because the alternative, living without you, is worse. Adrian pulled her closer, wincing slightly at the movement but not letting go. I don't deserve you, I know that. But I swear to you, Sophia, I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of this choice you're making. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll always come back, that no matter what happens, no matter what violence your world requires, you'll always come back to us. I promise. He kissed her forehead, her cheek, finally her lips. I will always come back to you and our son. Always. They lay together in the darkness, Adrian's hand resting on her belly, where Alessandro kicked steadily. Outside, wind rustled through the trees and moonlight painted silver patterns on the lake. Inside, two damaged people held each other and tried to believe that love could be enough. That somehow they could build a life together despite the violence and the danger and the impossible odds. That their son could grow up knowing his father was a complicated man who'd done terrible things but loved his family with absolute devotion. Adrian? Sophia whispered into the darkness. Thank you for finding me, even though I didn't want to be found. His arm tightened around her. I would have searched forever. There's nowhere you could have gone that I wouldn't have followed. That should terrify me. But it doesn't? Not anymore. And it was true. The obsessive determination that had once frightened her now felt like safety, like certainty, like a foundation solid enough to build a future on. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, Alessandro moving between them like a promise of the life they were about to begin. The following weeks settled into an unexpected rhythm. Adrian recuperated slowly, his body healing while he conducted business from the lake house through encrypted video calls and carefully managed delegations. Sophia watched him navigate his empire from their bedroom, marveling at how he could be so ruthless in one breath and so tender with her in the next. The waterfront distribution is running at 90% capacity. Marco's voice came through the laptop speaker one afternoon. We've absorbed most of the Morelli territory without resistance. The other families are staying neutral. Good. Keep it that way. Adrian shifted on the bed, wincing as his ribs protested. What about the transition plan? Are we on schedule? Ahead of schedule, actually. The real estate acquisitions are moving faster than anticipated. By this time next year, legitimate holdings will outpace the old business by a significant margin. Sophia looked up from her book, catching Adrian's eye. He'd been serious about transitioning to legitimate business. The transformation was actually happening, even if slowly. After the call ended, Adrian closed the laptop and turned to her. What? Nothing, just thinking about what you said before, about building something different. She set down her book. You're really doing it. I told you I was. I don't make promises I can't keep. He patted the bed beside him. Come here. Sophia moved to sit next to him, her belly now enormous at 8 months pregnant. Alessandro had grown considerably, making every movement an effort. Adrian's hand went immediately to her stomach, something he did constantly now, as if reassuring himself their son was still safe. He's running out of room, Sophia said, as a particularly strong kick made her grunt. Dr. Chen said he's measuring big, probably close to 8 pounds already. Takes after his father. Adrian's smile was proud. Strong, fighter. Let's hope he fights less and negotiates more. We'll teach him both. The world requires knowing when to do which. It was such a perfectly Adrian response, pragmatic, realistic, completely unrepentant about the violence in his world while still hoping for better for his son. Dr. Chen had become a regular presence at the lake house, visiting twice a week to monitor Sophia's progress. Everything looks excellent, she said during her latest visit. Baby is healthy, good position, heart rate perfect. You could go into labor anytime in the next few weeks. Anytime? Sophia felt a flutter of panic. I thought I had another month. You're at 36 weeks. Full term is considered 37 weeks. Some babies come early, some late. Alessandro will come when he's ready. Dr. Chen smiled. But given his size and your stress levels, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes an appearance sooner rather than later. After Dr. Chen left, Sophia found herself pacing the house nervously. They weren't ready. The nursery wasn't set up. They hadn't finalized a birth plan. She didn't even have a hospital bag packed. Sophia. Adrian caught her on her third lap around the living room. Breathe, we have time. Do we? Dr. Chen just said he could come any time. Then we'll be ready any time. He guided her to the couch, sitting beside her. What do you need? Tell me what needs to happen, and I'll make it happen. Sophia took a shaky breath, trying to organize her scattered thoughts. A nursery. We need to set one up here, and at the penthouse, and a hospital bag. And we need to decide where I'm giving birth, city or here. Here is closer to the lake house, but the city has better facilities. Adrian was already pulling out his phone. I'll have Dr. Chen recommend the best hospital in the area. We'll pre-register you at both locations, just in case. And I'll have Elena coordinate the nursery setups. Both locations? We'll be going back to the city eventually. Better to have everything ready, he typed rapidly. What else? I don't know. Baby clothes, diapers, all the things normal parents have prepared months in advance? Adrian's mouth quirked. Sophia, I run a multi-million-dollar organization. I think I can handle acquiring baby supplies. He made another call. Marco, I need you to hire a baby consultant, someone who can outfit 2 complete nurseries and provide everything we'll need for the first 6 months. Budget is unlimited. Timeline is 72 hours. He paused. I don't care if it's the weekend. Make it happen. Despite her anxiety, Sophia found herself smiling. A baby consultant? I delegate to experts. It's efficient. He pulled her against his side, careful of her belly. Stop worrying. Everything will be ready when Alessandro arrives. True to his word, within 3 days, the lake house had been transformed. An entire room had been converted into a nursery. Pale blue walls, a handcrafted crib, a changing table, shelves full of carefully organized supplies. The closet overflowed with tiny clothes in every size. A rocking chair sat by the window overlooking the lake. "It's perfect," Sophia whispered, running her hand over the crib's smooth wood. "How did you?" "Money and determination." Adrian stood in the doorway watching her. "Do you like it?" "I love it." She turned to him, tears threatening. "Alessandro is so lucky to have you as a father." Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Vulnerability, maybe, or hope. "You really believe that?" "I do. You're ruthless and dangerous, and you've done terrible things, but you love fiercely, Adrian, and our son will never doubt that he's wanted, protected, cherished." Adrian crossed the room, pulling her into his arms. "Neither will you. I know I'm not an easy man to love. I know my world is dangerous and complicated, but I will spend every day proving to you that choosing me was the right decision." They stood like that for a long moment, Alessandro kicking between them, a physical reminder of the future they were building together. That night, Sophia woke to cramping, not painful exactly, but uncomfortable, persistent. She lay still, timing the sensation. 10 minutes apart, then 8, then 10 again. Braxton Hicks, she told herself. Practice contractions. Dr. Chen had warned her about these, but when she shifted position and felt a gush of wetness, she knew immediately that this wasn't practice. "Adrian." She shook his shoulder, trying to keep the panic from her voice. "Wake up." He was alert instantly, the way he always was when danger threatened. "What's wrong?" "My water just broke." For a fraction of a second, she saw pure terror flash across his face. Then his control snapped back into place. Okay, how far apart are the contractions?" "I don't know, I just started timing them. Maybe 8 to 10 minutes? Adrian was already on his phone. "Dr. Chen, it's Valente. Sophia's water broke. Contractions are 8 to 10 minutes apart." He listened. "Understood. We'll meet you there." He hung up and turned to Sophia. "She says we have time, but we should head to the hospital now. First babies usually take a while." "Usually." Sophia gripped the edge of the bed as another contraction hit, stronger this time. "But not always." "Then we move fast." Adrian helped her up, supporting her weight. "I've got you. Just breathe." The next hour was a blur. Marco bringing the car around. The drive to the hospital. Every bump in the road making Sophia gasp. Adrian's hand gripping hers, his voice steady as he talked her through each contraction. "You're doing great," he murmured. "Just breathe in and out. That's it." "This hurts more than I expected." "I know. We're almost there." But they weren't almost there. They were still 15 minutes from the hospital when Sophia felt the pressure intensify dramatically. "Adrian," her voice came out strangled. "Something's wrong. The pressure, it's too much, too fast." Adrian leaned forward. "Marco, how far?" 10 minutes, boss." "We don't have 10 minutes. Adrian's voice was tight with barely controlled fear. He called Dr. Chen again. "We're not going to make it. The contractions are 2 minutes apart, and she's saying the pressure is intense." Even Sophia could hear Dr. Chen's sharp intake of breath through the phone. "Get her to the hospital as fast as you can. I'll have a team waiting at the emergency entrance. If you don't make it, pull over and call 911 immediately." "We'll make it." Adrian's jaw was set with determination. "Marco, faster." The car accelerated, eating up the distance. Sophia focused on breathing, on not pushing despite her body's screaming insistence that she should. Each contraction was stronger than the last, coming so fast she barely had time to recover between them. "Almost there," Adrian said, his hand crushing hers. "You're doing so well, Sophia. Just hold on." They pulled up to the emergency entrance with tires squealing. Dr. Chen was already there with a wheelchair and a team of nurses. Sophia barely registered the transfer from car to chair, the rushed journey through hallways, the flurry of activity as they got her into a delivery room. "Let's see where we are," Dr. Chen said, conducting a quick examination. Her eyes widened. "You're fully dilated. Sophia, your baby is coming now." "Now?" Sophia's voice rose in panic. "But we just got here. I haven't had any pain medication. I haven't—" "No time for any of that. When you feel the next contraction, I need you to push." Adrian positioned himself beside her, letting her grip his hand with crushing force. I've got you. You can do this. I can't. It's too fast. I'm not ready. You are ready. You're the strongest person I know. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Our son is ready to meet us. Let's bring him into the world. The next contraction hit like a wave, and Sophia pushed with everything she had. Pain exploded through her body, white-hot and all-consuming. She heard herself screaming, heard Adrian's voice talking her through it, heard Dr. Chen giving instructions. Good, Sophia. Again on the next one. Time lost meaning. There was only pain and pressure and the overwhelming need to push. Adrian's voice was her anchor, keeping her grounded when she wanted to give up. You're almost there. I can see his head. One more push. Sophia bore down with the last of her strength, and suddenly the pressure released. A thin, reedy cry filled the room. It's a boy, Dr. Chen announced unnecessarily, lifting a tiny, squirming infant covered in vernix and blood. Congratulations. They placed Alessandro on Sophia's chest, and the world stopped. She stared down at her son, their son, this impossible tiny human they'd created. He had a shock of dark hair and Adrian's nose and the most perfect little fingers that gripped her thumb with surprising strength. Hi, baby, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hi, Alessandro. We've been waiting for you. She looked up at Adrian and was shocked to see tears on his face, too. The feared crime boss, who never showed weakness, was crying openly as he stared at his son. He's perfect, Adrian said, his voice breaking. Sophia, he's perfect. Do you want to cut the cord, Dad? One of the nurses asked. Adrian looked almost afraid, but he nodded. His hand shook slightly as he took the surgical scissors and cut where the nurse indicated. A symbolic severing, making Alessandro his own person rather than just an extension of Sophia. After the medical team cleaned Alessandro up and completed the immediate post-birth procedures, they handed him to Adrian. Sophia watched, exhausted and overwhelmed, as Adrian held their son for the first time. The contrast was staggering, this powerful, dangerous man who'd killed without hesitation, cradling a 7-pound infant with infinite gentleness. Alessandro fit perfectly in the crook of Adrian's arm, his tiny fist curling around his father's finger. Hello, son, Adrian said softly. I'm your father, and I promise you, I will protect you with my last breath. I will give you everything I never had. I will teach you to be strong and smart and better than I am. I will love you beyond measure for all of my days. The vow was spoken like an oath, binding and absolute. Sophia felt fresh tears fall as she watched them together, her two loves meeting for the first time. Mr. Valente? A nurse approached cautiously. We need to take the baby for some routine tests, just for a few minutes, then you can have him back. Adrian looked almost unwilling to let go, but he carefully transferred Alessandro to the nurse's arms. Take care of him. Of course, he's in excellent hands. After the nurse left, Adrian returned to Sophia's side, taking her hand. You were incredible. I've seen a lot of brave things in my life, but watching you bring our son into the world, that was the bravest thing I've ever witnessed. I screamed through most of it. You fought through unimaginable pain to give him life. That's courage, Sophia. He pressed his lips to her knuckles. Thank you. For him. For giving me this gift. We made him together. We did. And we'll raise him together. I meant what I said to him. Every word. Sophia squeezed his hand. I know you did. You're going to be an amazing father. The test took longer than a few minutes. Nearly an hour passed before Dr. Chen returned, and Sophia immediately knew something was wrong from the expression on her face. What is it? Adrian was on his feet instantly. What's wrong with Alessandro? He's okay, Dr. Chen said quickly. But he's having some respiratory issues. Nothing uncommon in babies who come fast. They don't get as much of the fluid squeezed out during delivery. We've started him on oxygen and we're monitoring him closely. Can we see him? Sophia asked, fear gripping her chest. Of course. He's in the NICU. I'll take you there. The neonatal intensive care unit was a maze of equipment and tiny isolates. Dr. Chen led them to one where Alessandro lay under warming lights, a small oxygen mask over his nose and mouth. He looked so fragile, so vulnerable, hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily. His oxygen saturation is improving, Doctor, Chen said, checking the monitors. The respiratory distress should resolve on its own in the next day or two. Some babies just need a little help adjusting to breathing air instead of amniotic fluid. But he's going to be okay. Adrian's voice was tight. I believe so. We'll monitor him carefully, but his vitals are stable and trending in the right direction. Sophia reached through the isolette's access port, touching Alessandro's tiny hand. He gripped her finger immediately, his grip surprisingly strong for someone so small. He's a fighter, the NICU nurse said, smiling. Look at that grip. He's going to be just fine. Adrian's hand joined Sophia's, his finger next to hers and Alessandro's grip. He is a fighter, like his mother. They stood like that for a long time, both touching their son, willing him to be strong. Around them, the NICU hummed with activity. Nurses checking on other babies, monitors beeping, worried parents keeping vigil. We should let you rest, Dr. Chen said eventually to Sophia. You've been through a lot today. Alessandro will be well cared for here. I'm not leaving him. Sophia's voice was firm despite her exhaustion. Neither am I, Adrian added. Dr. Chen sighed. I expected as much. We can have a cot brought in for you, Sophia. Mr. Valente, there's a recliner in the parent waiting room you can use. I'll be fine here. Adrian had already pulled up a chair next to Alessandro's isolette. I'm not going anywhere. The first night was the longest of Sophia's life. Every beep of the monitors made her jump. Every change in Alessandro's breathing pattern sent her heart racing. But slowly, as the hours passed, his oxygen levels improved. The respiratory distress eased. By morning, Dr. Chen was cautiously optimistic. He's responding well. We might be able to remove the oxygen support this afternoon if he continues to improve. And then he can come to a regular room with us? Sophia asked hopefully. Let's see how he does without the oxygen first. But yes, if all goes well, you should be able to have him with you within 24 hours. Those 24 hours felt eternal. Sophia and Adrian took turns sleeping in short shifts, neither willing to leave Alessandro for long. They watched every breath, celebrated every small improvement, and slowly allowed themselves to believe their son would be okay. Marco appeared periodically with updates that Adrian barely listened to, all his focus on the tiny infant fighting for steady breaths. Sophia watched Adrian during those long hours and saw the complete transformation. The crime boss had disappeared entirely, replaced by a terrified father who would clearly trade his entire empire for his son's health without a second thought. I thought I understood fear, Adrian said quietly in the middle of the second night. I've been shot at, stabbed, beaten. I've faced down enemies who wanted me dead. But nothing has terrified me like watching him struggle to breathe. I know. Sophia leaned against him, both of them watching Alessandro sleep peacefully. But he's getting stronger. Look at his color. Look how steady his breathing is now. He's so small, so fragile. How do people do this? How do they survive loving something this much? One day at a time, one breath at a time, she took Adrian's hand, together. By the end of the second day, Alessandro was breathing completely on his own. The monitors showed strong, steady vitals. Dr. Chen pronounced him ready to move to a regular room with his parents. He's a miracle, she said, helping them get settled in the private suite Adrian had insisted on. Fast delivery, premature oxygen needs. He fought through it all like a champion. Sophia held Alessandro against her chest, marveling at the weight of him, the reality of him. He was here. He was healthy. He was theirs. Thank you, she said to Dr. Chen. For everything. Just doing my job. Though I have to say, in 20 years of practice, I've never seen parents more devoted than you two. Dr. Chen smiled. This little one is very lucky. After she left, Adrian sat on the bed beside Sophia, one arm around her shoulders while they both gazed at their son. He has your eyes, Sophia said. I couldn't tell at first, but now that they're open, definitely your eyes. And your mouth, see the shape? Adrian traced Alessandro's tiny lips gently. Perfect. Alessandro yawned, his whole face scrunching up, and both parents laughed softly. He's bored with us already, Adrian said. Can you blame him? After all that drama making his entrance, we're probably pretty dull. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Alessandro drift off to sleep. Outside the window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I need to tell you something, Adrian said eventually. I made a decision while we were waiting to see if Alessandro would be okay. Sophia looked up at him. What kind of decision? I'm accelerating the transition. Out of the old business entirely. I don't care if it costs me money or territory or power. I want to be legitimate within a year, 2 at most. Adrian, that's huge. Can it even be done that fast? It can if I'm willing to make sacrifices. And I am. He looked down at Alessandro. I promised him I'd be better than I am. That means actually being better, not just planning to be better someday. What about the people who'll see it as weakness? The enemies who'll try to take advantage? Let them try. Adrian's voice was hard. I'll deal with them. But I'm done building my son's inheritance on blood money. He deserves better. You both do. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes again. You're serious. Completely serious. Marco is already working on it. Within 6 months, I'll be out of anything illegal. Within a year, I'll be just another businessman. Boring, legitimate, safe. You'll never be boring. Sophia leaned her head against his shoulder. But safe sounds good, for all of us. Alessandro stirred in her arms, making small, snuffling sounds. Sophia adjusted her hold, and his eyes opened, dark and unfocused, but definitely looking at her. Hi, baby boy, she whispered. Welcome to the world. You have no idea how much you're already loved. Adrian's hand came to rest on Alessandro's tiny chest, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath. We're going to give you everything, son. Safety. Opportunity. A future without violence, I promise you that. It was a promise Sophia knew he would keep, because the man holding their son wasn't just a crime boss anymore. He was a father. And for Alessandro, Adrian Valente would move heaven and earth, would sacrifice his empire, would become someone entirely new. She'd fallen in love with a dangerous man. She'd run from that danger. And now she'd chosen to stay, to build a life with him. But watching Adrian with their son, seeing the absolute devotion in his eyes, Sophia knew she'd made the right choice. Their family wouldn't be conventional. Their path wouldn't be easy. But it would be theirs. And that was enough. They brought Alessandro home to the lake house 5 days later, and Sophia had never seen Adrian more careful about anything than he was carrying their son through the front door. He moved as if Alessandro were made of glass, each step measured and deliberate. You're allowed to breathe, Sophia said, watching him with amusement. He's not going to break. He's so small. What if I drop him? You're not going to drop him. You've held him 100 times already. In the hospital, with nurses watching. This is different. But Adrian relaxed slightly, settling into the rocking chair in the nursery with Alessandro cradled against his chest. We're really doing this. We're parents. We really are. Sophia sat on the ottoman beside them, reaching out to stroke Alessandro's cheek. Their son was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his mere existence had transformed two people's entire world. The first weeks were exhausting in ways Sophia hadn't anticipated. The sleep deprivation was brutal. Alessandro woke every 2 hours to feed, leaving both parents stumbling through days in a fog. But there were moments of pure magic too. The first time Alessandro smiled at them, the way he gripped Adrian's finger with surprising strength, the sound of his tiny laugh when Sophia tickled his feet. Adrian threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He learned to change diapers with military efficiency. He could prepare bottles in the dark without fumbling. He spent hours just watching Alessandro sleep, as if memorizing every detail of his son's face. You're staring again, Sophia said one night, finding Adrian standing over the crib at 3 a.m. I can't help it. He's perfect. Adrian looked up at her. How did we make something this perfect? I don't know, but I'm grateful we did. Marco arrived the next morning with news that made Adrian's expression harden. They spoke in low tones in the office, but Sophia heard enough to know it was serious. What happened? She asked after Marco left. Adrian sighed, running a hand through his hair. The Castellano family is making noise about the territory I took from the Morellis. They think the transition makes me vulnerable. Sophia felt ice slide through her veins. What does that mean? It means they're testing me, seeing if I'll defend what's mine, or if I've gone soft now that I have a family. His jaw clenched. They're about to learn a very painful lesson about assumptions. Adrian, I'm not going to war, Sophia, but I'm not rolling over either. He crossed to where she stood, taking her hands. I promised you I'd transition to legitimate business. I'm keeping that promise. But I never said I'd let people take what's mine without consequences. What are you going to do? Handle it, decisively, without unnecessary violence. He squeezed her hands. Trust me? Sophia thought about the man he'd been when they met, the man who'd killed without hesitation, and she thought about the man he was now, the one who spent hours rocking their son to sleep, who changed diapers at 3 a.m, who'd cried when Alessandro took his first breath. "I trust you," she said finally. "Do what you need to do." Adrian left for the city that afternoon, promising to be back in 2 days. Those 2 days stretched into Sophia's longest since Alessandro's birth. She tried to distract herself with caring for their son, with walks around the property, with anything that would keep her mind from imagining what Adrian was doing. Marco called twice with updates. "Everything's fine, Ms. Bennett. The boss has it under control." But Sophia knew under control could mean many things in Adrian's world. On the evening of the second day, she'd just gotten Alessandro down for what she hoped would be a longer sleep stretch when she heard a car approaching. She looked out the window and saw Adrian's SUV pulling up the drive. He looked exhausted when he came through the door, but uninjured. Sophia met him in the entryway, searching his face for clues about what had happened. "It's done," he said simply. "The Castellanos have withdrawn their challenge. They won't be causing problems." "How?" "I bought them out, made them an offer they couldn't refuse, literally. Gave them twice what the territory was worth plus guaranteed shares in the legitimate businesses I'm building." He shrugged off his jacket. "Sometimes the best weapon is money, not bullets." Relief flooded through Sophia. "No violence?" "No violence. Just negotiation backed by the implicit threat of violence if they refused. But they didn't refuse. They took the deal, and everyone walks away happy." That's actually brilliant. It's expensive, but worth it. And it proves my point. I can protect what's mine without becoming a monster." He pulled her into his arms. "How's Alessandro?" "Asleep, finally. He's been fussy all day. I think he missed you." "I missed him too, both of you." Adrian held her close, and Sophia felt some of the tension drain from his body. "I don't like being away from you." "Then don't be. Handle things from here. Isn't that what video calls are for?" "Some things require personal presence. But you're right, I should minimize trips to the city." "My priorities have changed." They went upstairs together, stopping by the nursery to check on Alessandro. He was sleeping peacefully, one tiny fist curled near his mouth. Adrian reached down to adjust his blanket, his touch infinitely gentle. "I have something I want to discuss with you," he said as they moved to their bedroom. "Something important." Sophia sat on the bed, suddenly nervous. "Okay. I know we've been living in this strange limbo. You're here, we're raising Alessandro together, but we haven't really defined what we are. What this is." He sat beside her, taking her hand. "I want to change that." "Change it how?" "I want to marry you, Sophia. I want you to be my wife. I want Alessandro to grow up seeing his parents committed to each other. And to him. I want—" He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "I want everything. With you. Forever." Sophia's breath caught. "Adrian, I know the timing isn't conventional. I know we're doing everything backwards. Baby first, proposal later. But I've waited long enough. I've loved you for years. I've spent the last 8 months proving that I can be the man you need me to be, the father Alessandro deserves." He slid off the bed, kneeling in front of her. "Marry me, Sophia. Make this family official. Make this permanent." He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring that made Sophia's eyes widen. A perfect solitaire diamond, simple and elegant, exactly what she would have chosen for herself. "I bought this 2 years ago," Adrian admitted, "before everything fell apart, before you left. I was planning to propose the weekend after you witnessed what you witnessed. Then you were gone, and I kept the ring anyway. Couldn't bring myself to return it. Couldn't accept that I'd lost you." Sophia stared at the ring, then at Adrian's face. She saw hope there, and vulnerability, and absolute devotion. This man had turned his entire life upside down for her, had promised to leave behind the violence that defined him, had already proven he could be an incredible father. Could she really say no? Did she even want to? "Yes," she heard herself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." The relief that washed over Adrian's face was profound. He slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her down to kiss her. It was tender and passionate and full of promise, a kiss that spoke of forever. "I love you," he murmured against her lips. "I will spend every day of my life making sure you never regret this choice." I love you too. Even when I was running from you, even when I was terrified of your world, I never stopped loving you." They held each other for a long moment, the ring sparkling on Sophia's finger, their son sleeping peacefully down the hall, this impossible family they'd created against all odds. "When?" Adrian asked. "When do you want to get married?" "Soon. Small. Just us and Alessandro and maybe Marco as a witness." Sophia smiled. "I don't need a big wedding. I just need you. Whatever you want. I can have someone here tomorrow to officiate if that's what you want." "Not quite that soon. Give me a few weeks to recover from childbirth at least." She laughed. "And maybe find a dress that fits." "You're beautiful in anything. But yes, a few weeks. We'll do it here, by the lake. Just family." Family. The word settled over Sophia like a warm blanket. They were a family now, officially, legally, permanently. The next 3 weeks were a blur of preparations mixed with the chaos of caring for a newborn. Adrian hired a wedding planner who somehow managed to create an intimate, beautiful ceremony on short notice. Sophia found a simple white dress that she could actually fit into. Dr. Chen agreed to attend as one of their few guests, along with Marco and Elena. The morning of the wedding, Sophia stood in front of the mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The woman looking back was glowing despite the exhaustion of new motherhood. The ring on her finger caught the light. Alessandro slept peacefully in his bassinet nearby, dressed in a tiny suit that made Sophia want to cry from the cuteness. "You ready for this?" Elena asked, helping Sophia with the final touches to her hair. "More ready than I've been for anything." And it was true. Despite everything, the fear, the running, the violence, this felt right. This felt like coming home. The ceremony took place on the deck overlooking the lake, with late autumn leaves creating a golden backdrop. Adrian stood waiting in a dark suit, and when Sophia appeared carrying Alessandro, his expression transformed into something so tender it took her breath away. "You're sure about this?" she whispered as she reached him, needing to hear him say it one more time. "I've never been more sure of anything." He touched Alessandro's sleeping face. "Both of you, you're my entire world." The officiant, a kind older man Adrian had found through connections Sophia didn't question, kept the ceremony simple and brief. Traditional vows with a few personalized additions. Adrian's promise to love and protect them both. Sophia's promise to stand beside him through whatever challenges came. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Adrian kissed her with Alessandro nestled between them, the three of them bound together in that moment. "I present to you," the officiant said with a smile, "the Valente family." The small gathering applauded. Marco was actually smiling, something Sophia had rarely seen. Dr. Chen dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Elena beamed like a proud mother. They celebrated with dinner on the deck as the sun set over the lake. Alessandro woke up and fussed until Adrian took him, walking him around while Sophia ate. Watching her husband, soothe their son while making sure she had everything she needed made Sophia's heart swell with happiness she hadn't known was possible. "To the happy couple," Marco raised his glass. "May your life together be long and prosperous." "And peaceful," Dr. Chen added pointedly. "Very, very peaceful." Adrian laughed. "I'm working on the peaceful part. Give me time." "You're doing better than I expected," Marco admitted. "The business transition is actually ahead of schedule. 6 months, and you'll be completely legitimate." 6 months, Adrian repeated, looking at Sophia. "Half a year and then no more looking over our shoulders. No more worrying about enemies or territory wars, just a normal family." "We'll never be completely normal," Sophia said, "but I'll take peaceful and legitimate." That night, after their guests had left, and Alessandro was finally asleep in his crib, Adrian and Sophia lay in bed together as husband and wife for the first time. "How does it feel?" he asked, playing with the wedding band now on her finger. "Being Mrs. Valente?" "Terrifying and wonderful in equal measure." She turned to face him. "Ask me again in 6 months, when the transition is complete, when we're really, truly building a new life." "I will. And every 6 months after that, for the rest of our lives." The following months brought changes faster than Sophia could track. True to his word, Adrian accelerated the business transition with single-minded determination. Holdings were sold, partnerships dissolved, legitimate investments expanded. Marco managed most of it, allowing Adrian to spend more time at the lake house with his family. Alessandro grew rapidly, hitting milestones that filled both parents with pride and terror. His first real smile. His first laugh. The day he rolled over for the first time, giving them both a heart attack. He's going to be mobile soon, Sophia said, watching their 4-month-old son practicing his rolling technique. We need to baby-proof everything. Already handled. I had a safety expert come through last week. Adrian scooped up Alessandro, who squealed with delight. Can't have our little warrior hurting himself. Warrior? Look at him. He's fierce. Adrian held Alessandro up, making him giggle. Aren't you? Fierce like your mama. Sophia watched them together, her heart impossibly full. This was what she'd been terrified of when she'd first learned she was pregnant. That her son would be raised in violence, would learn to solve problems with force rather than wisdom. But watching Adrian teach Alessandro to be gentle with the family cat, watching him read bedtime stories in his deep voice, watching him demonstrate infinite patience with a fussy infant, Sophia knew her fears had been unfounded. Adrian was becoming the father she'd hoped for, the man she'd believed he could be. When Alessandro was 6 months old, Adrian called a family meeting. He, Sophia, and Marco sat at the dining table while Elena watched the baby. As of today, Adrian said, sliding a folder across to Sophia, we are officially 100% legitimate. Every illegal holding has been divested, every questionable partnership dissolved. The Valente empire now consists entirely of legal businesses, real estate, import-export, investments, and the foundation. Foundation? Sophia opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. The Valente Family Foundation. I established it last month. It provides assistance to families trying to escape poverty or dangerous situations, housing, job training, education scholarships, legal aid. He met her eyes. People like you were when you were working at that diner. People who need a hand up, not a handout. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. Adrian, this is incredible. It's what you inspired. What Alessandro deserves to inherit. Not blood money, but something that actually helps people. He took her hand. I meant what I said. I wanted to be better. This is me being better. You are better. You've become exactly the man I always knew you could be. Marco cleared his throat. There's one more thing. I'm stepping back from daily operations, taking a position on the foundation board instead. It's time for me to get out of the game too. Marco, Adrian started. You gave me a way out, boss. A clean way out. I'm taking it. Marco smiled, something genuine and warm. Besides, someone needs to keep you honest in all this do-gooder work. After Marco left, Adrian and Sophia sat on the deck watching the sun set over the lake. Alessandro was asleep in his father's arms, peaceful and content. I never thought we'd get here, Sophia admitted. When you found me at that diner, I was so certain we were doomed, that your world would destroy us. Your world now, too. You're a Valente. Our world. And it's nothing like I expected. She leaned against his shoulder. It's better. Better than a basement apartment and double shifts at a roadside diner? Better than anything, because it's ours. It's real. It's built on love instead of fear. Alessandro stirred, making small sounds. Adrian shifted him gently, and their son settled back into sleep. I have something else to tell you, Sophia said. Something I've been waiting for the right moment to share. What is it? I'm pregnant again. Adrian went completely still. You're... what? Pregnant. About 8 weeks. I wanted to be sure before I said anything. She watched his face anxiously. I know it's fast. Alessandro is barely 6 months old, but it's perfect. Adrian's smile was brilliant. Another baby. Another miracle. Sophia, when did you find out? Last week. Dr. Chen confirmed it. Sophia touched his face. Are you really happy? I know we didn't plan this. We didn't plan Alessandro either, and look how perfectly that turned out. He carefully stood with their son, then pulled Sophia up with his free arm, kissing her deeply. I'm beyond happy. I'm ecstatic. Our family is growing. You're sure? 2 babies under 2 years old is going to be chaos. I've run a criminal empire. I think I can handle 2 babies. He grinned. We'll need to expand the nursery and get another crib, and Adrian, breathe. We have time. Time, right. But he was already pulling out his phone, making notes. We should tell Dr. Chen to start planning. and we'll need to hire a nanny, maybe 2 nannies, and Sophia laughed, taking his phone away. One step at a time. First step, let's just enjoy this moment. Our family. Our beautiful life. Adrian set the phone down, pulling her close again with Alessandro nestled between them. You're right. This moment. This is what matters. They stood like that as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. In the house behind them, Elena was humming while she prepared dinner. On the lake, a loon called to its mate. Everything was peaceful, safe, exactly what Sophia had dreamed of but never quite believed possible. I love you, Adrian said quietly. Thank you for giving me a second chance, for seeing past what I was to what I could become. I love you too. Thank you for finding me, for refusing to give up on us. Never. I would have searched forever. Alessandro woke then, his eyes opening to look at his parents. He smiled, a real, genuine smile of pure joy, and both Sophia and Adrian melted. He knows, Sophia whispered. He knows how much he's loved. Of course he does. We tell him every day. Adrian kissed their son's forehead. And we'll tell his brother or sister the same thing. And any other children we're blessed with. This family, it's everything. It's all that matters. As they went inside to feed Alessandro and have dinner with Elena, Sophia reflected on the impossible journey that had brought them here. From that moment in the diner when Adrian had walked back into her life, through the fear and the violence and the premature birth, to this peaceful evening in their lake house with their son and another baby on the way. She'd run from Adrian because she'd been terrified of his world, terrified of raising a child surrounded by violence and danger. But Adrian had transformed himself, had built something new, had proven that people really could change when they had enough motivation, and their motivation slept peacefully in his father's arms, completely unaware that his existence had rewritten 2 people's entire futures. Later that night, after Alessandro was asleep and they were lying in bed together, Adrian's hand resting on Sophia's still flat belly where their second child grew, he said something that made her heart swell. Do you remember what you said that first night when I found you at the diner? I said a lot of things. Most of them terrified. You said you couldn't bring a baby into my world, that you couldn't raise a son knowing his father was a killer. Adrian's voice was quiet in the darkness. You were right to be afraid. I was that man, violent, dangerous, ruled by power instead of love. Adrian, but you gave me a chance anyway. You stayed. You let me prove I could be different. And because of that, Alessandro gets to grow up with a father who chooses peace over violence, who builds instead of destroys, who loves instead of fears. He kissed her gently. You saved me, Sophia. You and our son. You made me want to be worthy of you. You were always worthy. You just needed a reason to believe it. That reason is sleeping down the hall and growing inside you and sitting beside me. His hand tightened on hers. My family. My purpose. My everything. They fell asleep like that, hands intertwined, their hearts beating in sync. Outside, the lake reflected starlight like scattered diamonds. Inside, a family slept peacefully, safe in the home they'd built together. The dangerous Mafia boss and the woman who'd run from him. The impossible love story that had transformed them both. The son who'd given them both a reason to change, and the new baby who would grow up knowing only the peaceful life his or her parents had fought so hard to create. It wasn't the ending Sophia had imagined when she'd fled in the middle of the night all those months ago. It was better, because the best love stories aren't about perfect people. They're about flawed people who choose to grow together, who fight for each other, who transform because love demands transformation. And as Sophia drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. Not the safe choice, not the easy choice, but the choice that had led her here, to this moment, this family, this life full of love and possibility and hope. The choice to believe that even the most dangerous man could become the most devoted father. The choice to stay when every instinct screamed to run. The choice to build something beautiful from something broken. And in the morning, when Alessandro's cries woke them both and they stumbled together to his nursery, when Adrian lifted their son with infinite gentleness and Sophia watched them in the early light, she felt nothing but gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. From a desperate encounter in a roadside diner to a family bound by unbreakable love, from fear and flight to safety and permanence, From separate, damaged people to a unified family building something extraordinary. This was their story, imperfect and complicated and absolutely real, and it was just beginning.